Hello, welcome back to the Unstoppable Moms Summit. My name is Janet LeCamp and I am your host. And I'm so happy today to introduce Kate Cook, and off camera, you can't see her right now, Joanne Byrick. And so Kate, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I'm so happy that you were able to come and speak with us today. Kate, why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you got to be doing that.
That's great. So I am a social worker by trade, and I work at Hospice Huronia up in Penetanguishene, Ontario. And so part of my role is supporting individuals here in our 5-bed hospice, but I'm also responsible for our community bereavement program. So a lot of the work we do is with palliative care and those living with life-limiting illness, but we also do provide grief and bereavement programs to people who have had any type of loss, right from pregnancy and infant loss up to child loss. Any different type of loss, we provide support to them in the community here at hospice. And that includes a lot of different support groups as well as one-to-one support.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And so based on that, Kate, and knowing that there are moms who are listening to the interview who may have lost children through addictions or mental health challenges, what do you think is most important to share today?
Yeah, I think just from doing this work, I think the most important thing to start with is just to acknowledge, certainly the magnitude of the loss that you've experienced. And if you're coming here today because you've lost somebody recently, we're very sorry for that loss. And I want you just to take a moment just to appreciate the magnitude of that. In the grief world, we don't really like to compare losses or say, certainly one is better than the other or one's worse than the other, but certainly the loss of a child is especially difficult because what you're kind of coping with is, mourning and missing all of those previous memories that you've had with your child, but you're also mourning all of the things that were to come and the different milestones that you may not see your child go through. So certainly it is a different type of loss. And just to take a moment to appreciate that it is challenging and it is unique. And I would encourage you just to connect to other parents that have been through this loss, because it is very different than a lot of people who attend grief programs on a regular basis. Your challenges are certainly unique to yourself. With that, I would also, talk a little bit about what we call secondary losses. So when you've lost a child, you physically have the loss of that child and kind of the future that they would have, but you've also have these other types of loss that affect you indirectly. So that could be, the loss of the parent-child role, of being their caregiver, certainly in supporting them through mental health and addictions. You've been by their side for quite some time and supporting and advocating through them. So just that loss of identity of that caregiver role, that you might feel a bit lost, a bit out of place and not sure where you quite fit in the world now. And just kind of honor that and be present with that feeling. It is a bit uncomfortable to get used to, but that will come. You might notice there's some changes in your schedules or your routines, and even, a loss of change in relationships, whether that's your personal relationships or the people that you connect to socially. Things might feel a little bit different. They might not understand what's happened or what you've gone through. You might feel you're hiding things from them because of some of the stigma, right, of what you've gone through. So just being patient with that. As a society, I think we're quite uncomfortable with grief in general. We're not very well educated about what to expect or how to support somebody who's grieving. And so the people around you certainly will do their best to support you and encourage you and offer guidance, but a lot of us don't really know grief until we've been through it. So where people may be coming to you with very well-intentioned sayings or words of encouragement or support, they may come across as hurtful or not helpful. So try to just keep in mind they are doing their best, being patient with that. Tapping into yourself if you find you might be getting a little bit angry with some of the things they say, some of those platitudes that we express, like time heals all wounds, right? We know that certainly grief is forever. It's you mourn that relationship for the rest of your life. A lot of the grief experts will tell you that grief is something you don't ever overcome or heal from or fix. It's not an illness that we treat. It's something that we just learn to live with and adapt to over time. And just keep that in mind, right? That there's no set timelines for your grieving process. You do it in your own way. And that's something I think we see here quite a lot at hospice is people feel there's an expectation to move on or get over this really quickly because you don't want to burden the people around you with your sadness. You don't want to worry them if you're not, at the top of your game there, but just giving yourself the kindness and the graciousness to take it at your own pace, and to try and work through the grief when you're ready and in a way that's meaningful for you, not what others expect of you, because they don't often understand it until they've lived in your shoes. And hopefully most people never do, right? Hopefully most people don't have to experience this loss. But I do find it is helpful to connect to people that have gone through it so that you understand, what to expect, what some of the feelings are that you might experience, what's normal, through the grieving process there.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, did you have something to add there, Janet?
No, I'm just really appreciating this information. It's so basic, but I can see how a lot of people would not, may not think of these things or may feel pressured to do the opposite.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
usually, what we recommend to parents or anybody that's lost somebody is in those first few months, typically what they call kind of the acute grief period there, is really just to focus on the basics for yourself. So focus on surviving each day. And that can be as simple as, today I got up to have a shower, had maybe a couple little nibbles of something to eat, and I went back to bed and rested. And just appreciate that your body's had, a traumatic loss, a significant loss, and that it takes a long time for our brains and our bodies to catch up to the significance of this. So not to try to overextend yourself, just being patient with that and trying to sit with that feeling, and not feel pressured to move through that quicker than you're comfortable with, right? And so there's an author that I really like to listen to, or she has several books as well. Her name is Megan Devine. And she has a saying that's, do it for yourself if you can, do it for others if you must. So really kind of slowing it down and just doing things that are only good for you, that are beneficial for you, saying yes to things that provide support and love and joy, saying no to things that overwhelm you or drain you or feel onerous that day. Just slowing down and trying to find the space and time for yourself.
Right.
The other piece, I think, is just really to keep those connections available where you can. You don't have to surround yourself with people every day. It's okay to have days where you just are, you're just there, you're just staring at the walls if you have to, you're watching mindless television, scrolling on your phone if you have to. You don't always have to be doing something, you can just be. But certainly keeping those social connections when you can and when you feel up to it. And that could just be to a couple people that you feel safe talking to, people that have walked this journey with you as a caregiver, just people that you feel comfortable talking to and opening up about. And the rest of the people around you certainly will understand that you're going through a significant loss, and you'll be there when you're ready to do so, and not to feel pressured just to reach out to everybody, right? They know you've been through a significant loss, and that you have to take some time for yourself. So not to feel, guilty about if your relationships fade away a little bit, as long as you've got a few regular people that you connect to. And so I think my biggest takeaway here from hospice standpoint and from a grief and bereavement standpoint is just do what's right for you in the moment and kind of take each day as it comes. There will be certainly some kind of ebbs and flows as you go through your grief journey. It's certainly not a linear process. You might hear a lot about the 5 stages of grief, which is a little bit of an older model.
Yeah.
It's not, anger, denial, sadness. It's a little bit all over the place. Every day might look a little bit different for you. And so just kind of listening to your body and your mind and what you need that day. And if it, is saying no to something you previously committed to, that's okay. You have to do what's right for you, and you have to do what's best for your mind at the time, right? You don't want to overwhelm yourself, and just keep those social connections as much as you can. And that's part of, a big part of what we do here at hospice is just providing that emotional support, whether it's one-to-one or through some of our more peer-led support groups where you connect with other parents who've experienced a loss as well. And that's part of what Joanne does here for us at hospice.
Oh, great. So thank you, Kate. That's awesome. And so are you going to shift it over to Joanne now?
I will. So Joanne is one of our wonderful volunteers, and she supports us here at hospice through doing our parent circle group, which is for any parent who's lost a child of any age under any circumstance. And they're welcome to meet here at hospice just to have that kind of fellowship in a way, right? That connection of somebody who's had that shared experience of loss. Okay, so I'll pass it over to her capable hands.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi,
And,
Joanne.
hi, Janet. Nice to meet you, and thank you for this opportunity for
Oh,
me for what I'm doing at hospice.
it's our pleasure. I'm so glad that you were able to come today and talk about what you do at hospice. So you are a volunteer, are you not?
I am a volunteer at hospice, and I do facilitate the parent circle here. I guess I have to explain that the reason I'm doing this is that my son brought me to this work. He died 14 years ago from a drowning. And I was living in Peterborough at the time and got involved in the grief and bereavement support there. And then through the years, I was asked to, join a parent circle group and help. And here I am doing this still. And, it's wonderful work. And I know that for me, stepping into what we called a fireside chat for parents initially was really the first place that I felt like I belonged after Ben's death. You just don't know who you are. You don't know your place. We have a name for every other loss. If you lose your parents, you become an orphan. If you lose your spouse, you're a widow or a widower. There's no name for a parent who's lost a child. So it really was a place that I felt I could be honest, and the loss was acknowledged and understood. And by sharing with other parents my experience and them sharing with me, we could help each other. The dreaded question that a lot of the parents in my group will talk about is, how you go out in the world and people say, so, how are you? And as a society, we're expected, or we think we're expected to say, I'm fine. And so we often do say, I'm fine. And the parents in the group have come up with sort of an acronym for FINE. And FINE, the F meaning falling apart, the I meaning isolated, the N meaning neurotic, and the E meaning feeling empty. So we laugh a little bit about that because, you put on that smile for people out in the world, and in your mind you're thinking, okay, but really what I'm feeling are those things. And because we're talking about mental illness too, there's a number of our parents in our group that have lost children because of their illness. And we talk about how we should never define anyone by the way they die. And, it just isn't the way. The stigma, and it is there for sure. And the judgment. In our parent circle, no losses. We don't compare the losses. We're there for each other to listen and to share our story. I often start our sessions, when we're first meeting, whether I'm meeting with a parent one-to-one or in a group, to talk a little bit and give some attention to the event that's happened. Who your son or daughter was. Can you share? You don't have to share anything in the group if you don't want to, but we talk a little bit about, the event. And, as people open up and talk about their child, who they were, what they did, they'll talk about the death of their child. And then we move sometimes and sometimes not onto how you have experienced that. And then as time goes on, we meet, once a month, or sometimes I meet with parents one-to-one. Then we talk about the effects on you as the mom or the dad, and the effects on the family, and the effects on the bigger picture, on your work, on who you are, which is really helpful because we find that there's so many similarities. We don't know who we are. We're struggling with everything. You look around and you don't fit. people often, or parents will often say, you know, I go out into the world and the people at the grocery stores or walking down the street, people will walk to the other side of the street just so they can avoid me. Whether that's true or not, that's what they feel, because you just really want to be able to say, my son or daughter just died, but it's not really acceptable, and how to try to balance what you say, when you say it, where is a safe space to say it. And certainly in the parent circle, everything is confidential. You know, you're able to share, you know, whatever you're able to share at that time, and it's honored and you're acknowledged. You know, in the midst of this tragic loss, I think I've learned mostly that the love, the support, and the deep caring, and the vulnerability that we witness in the room or hold space for other parents, um, keeps us steady. You know, we can touch back with each other by a phone call or coming together or doing a Zoom or a virtual meeting. And it just holds us up a little bit when we're feeling so vulnerable and so shaky.
Mhm.
We talk about how love never dies. At first, in the very first months, love is, you can't feel love. You're terrified to feel love, because the love you felt, you feel you've lost. And it's fear. You feel like, certainly for myself, I felt like the atomic bomb had dropped on our house. And we had no understanding of what the fallout was going to be. And the fallout continues, and it tests your capacity. You know, people will say to you, well, you're strong. That's not particularly helpful. I didn't find it particularly helpful. But, you know, really test your capacity and your resilience. Like Kate said, you grieve, I think, for a lifetime.
Mhm.
But in that grief, you hold that love for a lifetime also. And that is what sustains me. And that's what I hear from a lot of the parents as time goes on. Bereaved parents, we have an unspeakable bond. We'll often talk to each other about how we can walk in a room, you know, in a social setting, and inevitably we will gravitate towards somebody who's had a similar loss. And we're always surprised that, wow, you know, how did that happen? But we seem to be able to pick each other out, or we're just in a space and we come together and we can share. And it's a safe space. It is the club that none of us ever wanted to belong,
Mhm.
but is a club that we will hold for a lifetime. You know, clubs come and go, but you're in this one for the long haul.
Yeah.
We talk a little bit about the empty chair at the table, you know, the celebrations, birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas, how difficult they are. But we also share the ideas that have been helpful to me and other people in order for them to celebrate their children still, and share those stories and those memories. Those are difficult in those first few years. I myself could not even connect at all to my son as a child, a small child. He was 24 when he died. I could only focus on that age at that time. It was just too painful to look at him as a child.
Mm.
I can now, of course. And I think there's something that we've discussed as parents, that you're just not capable of feeling all the emotions that are coming at you with the death of a child. And your brain kind of shuts part of it off so that you can just do it a piece at a time. It's like no other loss. You just don't have the capacity. I acknowledge, I mean, I would say that to my own family, my husband and my other children. I wanted to be the best mother and wife I could be. I just was very aware I had to take care of me first, which is important. So self-care is really important. I think because as parents, this is such deep, deep sorrow. But I can attest now, after 14 years, that that deep sorrow also brings unspeakable joy. Meeting with these parents, sharing our stories, laughing, joking. It's real life. Together, those parents were embracing the life we have, because that is the life we have. Nobody would wish this on anybody. You know, and we talk about our kids and we talk about the similarities that, you know, they have, which is really helpful. It's hard sometimes with families or extended families or friends to bring their names up and to talk about them. It either makes people feel uncomfortable or we perceive it makes people uncomfortable. We're not a death-friendly society. We're death-denying in many ways. So I feel great joy in being able to share my stories with other families and to be in a room and hold space together. And the friendships that you develop, I really think are lifelong. You know, we understand each other, and we need each other. So I've been very grateful to Hospice for them to allow me to, you know, to be with these parents and share my story with them, and for us to sort of grow through this loss and grief together as parents, healthy and, you know, and wiser for sure. I have a little poem that one of my parents many years back brought to our group, and I think it says a lot. So if I could read it, I'd like to do that. It's really about saying the name of the child that you've lost. And that, like Kate referred to, that's any child, you know, because of any age. So it's called Say. So I will use Say Ben because my son's name was Ben, but you just put in your own child's name. So it says, Say Ben, the time of concern is over. Never is the name of our son mentioned. A curtain descends. The moment has passed. A life slips from frequent recall. There are exceptions, close and compassionate friends, sensitive and loving family. For most, the drama is over. The spotlight is off. The applause is silent. But for me, the play will never end. The effects on me are timeless. Say Ben to me. On the stage of my life, he has been both lead and supporting actor. Do not tiptoe around the greatest event of my life. Love does not die. His name is written on my life. The sound of his voice replays within my mind. You feel he is dead. I feel he is of the dead and still lives on. He ghost walks my soul, beckoning in future welcome. You say he was my son. I say he is. Say Ben to me and say it again. It hurts to bury his memory in silence. What he is in spirit stirs within me always. He is of my past, but he is part of my now. He is my hope for the future. You say not to remind me how little you understand that I cannot forget. I would not if I could. I understand you, but feel pain in being forced to do so. I forgive you because you cannot know, and I would forgive you anyway. I accept how you see me, but I understand that you see me not at all. I strive not to judge you, for yesterday I was like you. I love you, will make no exceptions towards you. But I wish you could understand that I dwell both in flesh and spirit. The mystery is that you do too, but know it not. I do not ask you to walk this road. The ascent is steep and the burden heavy. I walk it not by choice. I would rather walk within his flesh, looking not to spirit roads beyond. I am what I have to be. What I have lost, you cannot feel. What I have gained, you cannot see. And I would not have you. Say Ben, for he is alive in me. He and I will meet again, though in many ways we have not parted. He and his life play light songs on my mind. Sunrises and sunsets on my dreams. He is real and shadow, was and is. Say Ben to me and say Ben again. He is my son and I love him as I always did.
Thank you so much for that, Joanne.
You're welcome.
That's an amazing poem.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, it's our pleasure. Oh, completely.
And blessings to all those parents out there and moms, and be there for each other.
Yeah, yeah. We need each other.
Yeah.
And so Joanne, do you or Kate have anything else you'd like to add before we close?
No, I think that's Kate saying no. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you so much for coming today and talking with us. And yeah, I just
Sounds like an exciting summit.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's really coming together.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
That's great.
thank you.